Welcome one and all to the second annual LEGO-lden Globes Award ceremony. Last year's show was an unprecedented success, surpassing all viewership expectations with record profits. And so, in the spirit of the games industry in 2024, not only has everyone involved been laid off as a result, but they've also been taken around back and executed. That's just good business. And so, without further ado, let's jump straight into it with the award for the best theme of 2024. There were a few solid contenders this year. For example, I thought LEGO Fortnite came out with an incredibly strong debut wave. LEGO Icons was a really close runner-up, I think, with Brarador, the Lamborghini Countach, the Dune Ornithopter, and the Medieval Town Square, I think, being highlights here. But I think the winner this year is actually Speed Champions. This has been one of my favourite themes every year since the 8 stud wide change in 2020, but 2024 was an exceptionally great year for it. They put out more sets than ever before, and of those sets, I think the F40 and the Mustang are the two best individual cars they've ever made, and the Mercedes and BMW Duo Packs are the two best Duo Packs they've ever made. The three best Speed Champion sets they've ever made, I think, came out in 2024. Like, in terms of the quality and quantity of sets from this theme, I just can't imagine them having a better year. It was pretty much perfect. It's actually pretty difficult to decide on the worst theme of 2024 because honestly, LEGO have been doing a fairly good job across the board these days. But for the second year running, I'm still giving this to DC Comics superheroes. Now, it wasn't actually that bad this year. Like, the Gotham City art thing is amazing, the classic Batmobile is solid, and even the Batmobile playset is decent, albeit very overpriced. The problem is that outside of that, you have a Batman buildable figure, a Batman 4+ set, a Batman mech, 6 magazine gifts, of which 5 are Batman adjacent and the other is Joker, and finally, a product collection set, which doesn't really count as a set, with a minifigure selection that perfectly encapsulates what's wrong with LEGO DC over the past few years, with Batman, the Joker, Batman, the Joker, and of course, Batman. Maybe in 2025 they'll introduce a third character, who knows. The best decision of 2024, I think, is pretty clear cut in the sense that it's the one that negated last year's worst decision, which is when they gave the CMF boxes a barcode that always uniquely identifies the figure inside. I'm really happy to see this change because it turns what otherwise would have been a predatory, gambling adjacent system into a pretty fun sounding, almost like scavenger hunt. It is a shame that it's reliant on third-party apps to take advantage of this change. If I were LEGO, I'd just update the scanner on the LEGO Builder app to also do this. As for the worst decision of 2024, there's only one in particular that stands out to me in a bad way, and that's the decision to ban modular buildings from being submitted to the Bricklink Designer program. It came as part of a wider rule change that I otherwise don't really care much about, and you could pause now and read it if you like, but I mean, there's no ambiguity at all here, it's very directed. Having a way to get more high-quality official modulars was the thing that excited me most about the whole program. And with this decision, the whole thing is basically now just a vessel for boats, trains, and medieval stuff to me, which is still kinda cool, but nowhere near as exciting as it was when the modulars were involved. Here's a fun new category I'm shamelessly borrowing from the Game Awards, with the most anticipated set. At any given point in time, we as a community generally have like a 6 months heads up on sets just through various leaks, and let me just say, 2025 has the potential to be an unbelievably good year for LEGO. It's actually hard to name just a singular runner-up here, so I'm just gonna list a bunch of honourable mentions, starting with the return of The Simpsons with a Krusty Burger set. There's the next large-scale Lord of the Rings set with the Bag End, a LEGO Icons remake of the Black Pearl. I'm sure the Enterprise from Star Trek is exciting for many. And then there's, of course, Jango Fett's UCS Boba Fett Starship, as well as all those other obscure prequels and Clone Wars related playsets. But to me, the obvious choice for most anticipated set has got to be the €1,000 UCS Death Star. We all knew LEGO would cross that €1,000 barrier at some point. My safest bet is that within the next 6 years, we will see the first €1,000 LEGO set. I think most people, even if they're not excited for it or are ever gonna get it, I think they just have to be curious as to what LEGO considers worth that kind of money. And now we're going to look at the set with the best build experience of 2024, and as usual I can't give awards based on the build experience of sets I haven't built, so Jabba's Sail Barge, the McLaren P1, and especially the Dungeons & Dragons set all could have won it this year, but I haven't built either of them, so I can't say for sure. With that said, I'm going to personally give the runner-up spot to the Lamborghini Countach, which I found to be extremely enjoyable. There's some sections that use some really fun and clever techniques, but more than that, I think there's just something so satisfying about seeing this car with its super iconic shape just come together in front of your eyes. I have a real soft spot for that car in real life, so that really struck a chord with me. But to me, the winner has got to be the Lord of the Rings Barad-dûr. The base uses hinged plates to create really off-grid and natural angles. It has various mechanisms throughout which were really fun touches. The rockwork streaking across the middle has some fun variety, and especially the build for the eye itself was incredibly fun. The thing that really did it for me though was that the build is broken up into two sections, one for the large base and the other for the long tower portion, and the final step of the build was placing the tower portion onto the base. And when you do that and you just take that step back and look up at this behemoth of a set, like that moment and that feeling was so cool and so unique that it probably would have won this award based on that alone, even if the rest of the set didn't happen to have a really fun build up until that point. And now for the set with the worst build experience of 2024. And for this, my original choice was actually the UCS TIE Interceptor because it just didn't do anything for me in terms of excitement. I found it really boring and way more repetitive than I expected, but I'd be smoking crack if I gave this to anything else other than the LEGO Build Together message board. Now, to give this some credit, it does give you a lot of freedom to customize the build to your liking and spell out whatever you want, and there's some planning out and adapting to do depending on what you end up spelling, but at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you're going to be repeating the same 8 or so steps for the framework in whatever configuration, and basically the same thing probably 10 to 25 times for the letters of whatever you decide to spell out. It feels like it's one of those builds that you kind of just get through to get to the final model. Like, I'd almost say it's not even designed to be enjoyed. Time for another new category this year with the I Bought It for the Minifigure Award. This, as you can probably guess, is a set that was completely underwhelming, boring, or just bad, with the exception of a single, very desirable minifigure. And my god, there were plenty to choose from this year. Boarding the 10 to 4, in my eyes, is a super boring and kind of ugly set, filled with minifigures most people have 3,000 of already, but it has that 25th Anniversary 5's minifigure, currently going for €14, which by itself is over 25% of the set's retail value. The Bark Speeder Escape is a speeder bike build we've already seen plenty of times before, a random useless lamp build, 2 501st clones you'd already have by now if you wanted them, a Grogu minifigure I apparently already have 7 of, and an exclusive Keller and Beck minifigure currently worth 22% of the value of the set. Then there's R2-D2, which is yet another large-scale buildable R2-D2, which means there's now 3 of them for sale at the same time. It's one I personally see absolutely no reason to buy if you have the older, larger one from 2021. Apart from that exclusive 25th Anniversary Darth Malak minifigure, which is worth 30% of the set's value by itself. But to me, the winner here is the Creative Play Droid Builder set, which has that 25th Anniversary Child Princess Leia minifigure. This is especially egregious because not only is the set dog shit and ludicrously overpriced, all the while being marketed towards the exact opposite person that would want this figure, but this figure is also part of a larger, exclusive 25th Anniversary range of minifigures, meaning if you wanted the full set, you'd need to pay €100 for this set that nobody wants just to get that figure. And this is reflected in the resale prices of this figure, which is, at the time of writing this, by itself currently going for 47% of the retail price of the whole set. One guy bought her for €73, which means to that guy, the rest of the set is worth less than €27. And the worst thing is the figure isn't even that good. And now for the best value set of 2024. I legitimately struggled to find a winner here. Like, there wasn't a single set this year that stood out to me as especially good value. Lego was expensive, what a revelation, but it did feel like there was no proper bargains last year. The Notre Dame Architecture set has 4,300 pieces for just €230, but I don't think price per piece tells the full story here, and it's actually pretty average value all things considered. But the winner, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but hear me out, is the Lord of the Rings Barad-dûr. Like, yeah, it's €460, which is a lot, but you do get nearly 5,500 pieces for that, as well as 10 unique, pretty high quality minifigures. But honestly, I think the thing that convinced me most here was that when I had it finished and sitting on my desk, I could see the UCS Star Destroyer in the background, and I just thought to myself, this feels much more valuable to me than that €700 UCS Star Destroyer. I didn't even feel ripped off by that set at that price, so logically, this Barad-dûr set probably wouldn't have felt awful at or even above that price. It's a massive, incredibly displayable set. Like, I would consider $600 to be a fair price for it. Like, I don't know, it just feels like that's the best value set I could find last year. As for the worst value set of the year, there's plenty to choose from here, but 2 sets really stood out above the rest to me. Firstly, there was the Captain America vs. vs. Red Hulk Battle Set, which has 3 decent enough minifigures and 1 Red Hulk Big Fig, and has this build with 200 pieces, which is considerably less than even a regular Speed Champions car, yet they were charging €55 for it. And that's the runner-up. The winner here, by far, is the X-Men X-Jet. It has 4 minifigures, of which 2 have no leg printing, 3 suffer badly from opacity issues, and only 1 is, in my eyes, unique to the set. The build is a decent-ish, albeit scrawny X-Jet with about 350 pieces, so roughly the same as the Speed Champions car. And LEGO decided that this whole package should be €85. If you chopped that price in half, only then would it be roughly the same value as Jedi Bob's Starfighter, which, by the way, is still considered overpriced. It's actually criminal how much they thought they could exploit the long-neglected X-Men fans here. Next up is the Biggest Disappointment Award. And my win here might be a bit surprising, but I'm giving it to the Droideka for a few reasons. Firstly, I was expecting it to be much bigger. Like, not massive, but definitely bigger than it was. I was hoping its scrawny build would let it cover more space, and it would end up looking good alongside the other brick-built characters, but it was tiny and looked super out of place with them. More than that though, and this will take a minute to explain, is that I thought this was the most soulless, devoid of love build I've ever experienced. The build experience of a Speed Champions car is full of love, and it's something that becomes really obvious when you build one of them because the designers are always going out of their way to make even the simplest shape or angle come together in a super unique, memorable, or fun way. The designers clearly love what they're doing, and you can feel that as you're building. This Droideka, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. It felt like an uninspired, purely utility build with no extra effort to make it feel special or unique. Maybe I was in a rancid mood while building it and I'm just projecting onto this poor set, but regardless, it was easily the set that disappointed me most in 2024. As for the most surprising set of 2024, there were actually quite a few that pleasantly surprised me for one reason or another. The Star Wars 25th anniversary figures, while not technically a set, were a shock to everyone, I think. Same thing with the entire Rebuild the Galaxy sub-theme, like nobody could have predicted those. LEGO Dune is a crossover that makes perfect sense, but I never actually expected it to happen. The midi-scale Millennium Falcon surprised me in how much I loved it and how much it sold me on the Starship collection. And the Lamborghini Countach had a much more fun and better build than I expected. To me though, the biggest surprise of 2024 was the Onyx Cinder. Not necessarily because it was the best set here or anything, but because it was just so much more enjoyable than I expected. The build was super asymmetrical with loads of fun sub-assemblies with cool angles and attachment points. I liked the minifigures a good bit too, despite not seeing the show yet. And the final model feels really solid and looks fairly unique too. It was just a set that exceeded my expectations in loads of ways to such a degree that I was really surprised in a good way. In terms of the best display set of 2024, there were 3 sets in particular here that I think deserve a mention. I thought the Notre Dame Cathedral was so incredibly densely detailed to a degree I've never seen before. Like, it's shocking how much depth, texture, and detail they managed to pack into a relatively small set like this. I think a close runner-up for this award is the LEGO Ninjago Dragonstone Shrine. I love how the vibrant pink leaves and the bright brown of the tree stands out against the otherwise muted, natural tones of the rocks. I love the olive green scattered throughout the rockwork, the waterfall with that bubbling on the water surface, and that little bit that spills over between the rocks. The winner though, which probably isn't a surprise, is the Lord of the Rings Barad-dûr. I already mentioned it has a massive, almost intimidating presence that really helps its case, but there's also so many design elements to it that I think deserve recognition and praise. They use this technique where they kind of bake the lighting into the set by using a gradient of solid brick colors, like on the rocks around the lava to give the impression of a glow, and those orange and brown bricks around the eye itself to make it look like it's a light source. As far as I know, this is the first time LEGO ever used this technique in a set, and I really can't emphasize enough how cool it looks in person. Especially around the base, like there's something so cool about seeing this gradual brightening of the rocks contrasted with the pure black of the walls themselves. I also love that rockwork stretching diagonally across the tower. It breaks up what could have easily otherwise been a relatively boring black building, and not only situates it, but it almost feels like those jagged rocks are being pulled, distorted, and corrupted by the tower's presence. The whole model is honestly one of the best display sets I own, so yeah, it just had to win here. And now it's time for the ugliest set of 2024, and the winner this this year was pretty easy. It's the message board set again. What's there to say about this that isn't already obvious at a glance? It's LEGO's equivalent to the classic live, laugh, love decoration, except somehow blender with this pure white and beige color scheme, and that's it. It's a set designed to not be noticed. Like, it's supposed to be put in the kitchen and completely ignored as you walk past it to get some snacks. Because of that, to me it's the antithesis of a good display set, so it just couldn't not win the award here. The next award is for the playset of the year, and we have a few interesting choices here for various reasons. The Dark Falcon, I think, was easily the best LEGO Star Wars playset this year. The build was fun, the model looks great, and the minifigures were extremely cool and very well made, for the most part. After much deliberation, I decided to give the runner-up spot to the Dune Atreides Royal Ornithopter, and giving the winning spot to the Fortnite Battle Bus. Let me explain my reasoning here. The Battle Bus has much higher quality minifigures, as I mentioned earlier, and it even comes with an extra one compared to the Ornithopter. The Ornithopter's figures were great, although I wasn't too crazy about the Paul figure. I feel like he looked a little bit too generic for my liking. But the Battle Bus's minifigure selection is historically unmatched, especially for this price range. The Battle Bus is also a bit more play-focused, to a point that I initially considered the Ornithopter a display set, which I'd honestly still stand by if it weren't for the handful of play features on it. And finally, I think price is an important consideration here, and I don't think the Battle Bus could be overlooked in this case because, on top of everything else, it's also €65 cheaper. And now it's time for the minifigure section of the ceremony, and we'll start with the worst minifigure of 2024. For me, the winner here was never really in doubt, which is Professor X from the X-Mansion set. I actually couldn't believe it when I first saw this figure. I was genuinely appalled by how not designed he was. Like, this looks like a character an 8-year-old would throw together from spare parts to pretend it's Professor X. And there's good reason to feel this way, because not only did they reuse the Lex Luthor face for him, which is like 13 years old at this point, and it's so common that I almost laughed when I saw it, but they also reused the torso and leg pieces from The Office's Michael Scott. This is not only lazy, but it's also completely the wrong color, lacks details like the breast pocket and handkerchief, and his shirt and tie have these random stripes and spot patterns that aren't even close to the source material. This actually feels like a placeholder minifigure they included in the set temporarily before they got a chance to actually fucking design the minifigure. This honestly might be the worst minifigure they've ever released, with the exception of Alderbedo. Maybe. As for the best minifigure of 2024, I once again start with the runner-up, which I'm given to Baron Vladimir Harkonnen from the Dune Ornithopter. This figure doesn't actually have much printing at all, just a single face print and that's it. But I mean, come on, look at that cape, like, it's so glorious. They easily could have made him a regular minifigure, maybe added some printing to allude to how fat he is, but this is such a unique and clever way to go about depicting this character that you just gotta give them credit for. And the winner of Minifigure of the Year 2024, I think, is Adventure Peely. Once again, the Ornithopter is runner-up to the Battle Bus. First things first, Peely is the GOAT. Like, look at that face, you can't not love him. But even outside of that though, he has jewel molded, printed legs, and a specially molded banana piece with some brilliant printing on it. Honestly, there's like 3 or 4 contenders for Minifigure of the Year within this set alone, but I personally like Peely the most, so I'm very happy giving it to him. For the penultimate award, we have a new category that I'm calling the X-Mansion Award. This award is for a set that isn't the worst value, doesn't necessarily have the worst build experience, or really any outstanding flaw or quality deserving of an award in and of itself, but this is a set that does a lot of things a little bit wrong or annoyingly, and for this year, I'm giving it to the X-Mansion. Where to begin with this thing? The quality of the minifigures here is shocking. No arm printing, no dual molded legs, even on figures that obviously should have had them, like Cyclops, Wolverine, Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit. But even worse still is that this set is the biggest victim of print opacity issues I've ever seen. Wolverine's legs, Professor X's torso, every part of Cyclops, Rogue's torso, Gambit's face, Bishop's torso and legs, and Jean Grey's face are all washed out and shitty looking. Like, this is beyond a joke. Wolverine and Storm were also heavily downgraded from their CMF versions, and the Beast figure was omitted entirely, which is ridiculous for a set that costs €320. Even worse than these figures though, is the mansion itself. It's almost perfectly symmetrical, which rarely looks great. The dome on top looks super basic and flat, straight out of a regular like €30 playset. The walls and windows have almost no depth to them at all, with an absurdly simple looking build that's only mildly interesting to look at because of the masonry pieces. Just in general, this set doesn't come anywhere near the design standard and quality of the modular buildings line, to a point that I straight up don't think you could display it alongside them. It would look so out of place and bad. It's all so fucking tiny. The mansion itself only takes up a tiny slice of the base plate, with loads of wasted space in the back especially. And it has the most cramped interior I've ever seen, even by modular building standards. This set is so tiny and short that's actually more comparable to the smallest residential modular building LEGO have ever made, which is even more ridiculous when you consider that this is supposed to be a mansion. Like, this should have been the size of the Home Alone house, not whatever pathetic excuse of a building this is. Also, just putting it out there, why was this even a modular building? The mansion, in every reference I could find, clearly stands on its own in the countryside, and isn't the whole point of the expansion to be a safe zone for mutants away from society? Why would you design it as if it's supposed to fit in a modular city attached to other buildings in the first place, as if it's supposed to be in like downtown New York or something? It just doesn't make any sense. And now for Set of the Year 2024, and if you've been paying attention to the previous awards, you could probably guess what this is, but I'm giving it to Barad-dûr. Last year had Rivendell, the Venator, and the Avengers Tower, which kind of were competing for top spot, but Barad-dûr this year kind of felt like it just stood out on its own. I already said it had the best build experience, it's the best display set, and it's really good value. Like, if you have those three things, you can't not win Set of the Year. And that concludes the LEGO-lden Globes Award ceremony for this year. This was a little bit late, it's currently February, whatever. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and farewell.